the class. Good morning, Kahal Kadosh, Beruchim Aba'im to everybody. Today, Friday, Erev Shabbat Kodesh, Perashat Emor, Makam Siga, the 29th day of the Omer, Hilula of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, the holiday of Pesah Sheni. Today also is the 5th day of May 2023, which I believe in Mexico, in Puebla, I think Cinco de Mayo, right? There is something like that in Mexican history, I believe. And also corresponding to the 14th day of Iyar. Today's special breakfast and class is dedicated on the celebration of Pesah Sheni and the Hilula of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. As I mentioned, I have one candle today available in honor of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. Anybody interested, feel free to take it and we'll bill you accordingly later. So I like to, is the flat rate 613. Okay, you want the zachut, you pay for it. That's simple. 301 is balash. I'm giving you a suggestion. Buy it now because the auctioning on the Hilula of Lag VaOmer is an auction. So you're going to have fierce competition. This is a soft opening, I already sold one online, by the way. Baruch Hashem. Beseder? So interested? Just lift your hand or come and pick it up and we'll take care of you. Okay, so I'll try to divide the class of today in two parts of the class. And bear with me because there is a lot of information to share with the Kahal Kadosh. Let's go to the chronological chain of events concerning the Pesach Sheni celebration, also known as Pesach Katan, the small Pesach. The Torah in Perashat Be'alotecha says the following. The Jewish people, second year after they left Egypt, they do the Pesach sacrifice. Beautiful. So far, so good. Then suddenly, the Torah tells us that there was a group of men that approached Moshe Rabbeinu, and they say to Moshe Rabbeinu, we are impure. Why we should be less than the rest of the Jewish people? Okay, now I'm looking for something which I found. Today's class has been anonymously sponsored as well. Le'ilui nishmat Shaul ben Miriam, Mr. Charles Ashkenazi alav shalom. Iratzonta to the words of Torah, his neshama have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. So the Pasuk writes that a group of people approach Moshe Rabbeinu and they say to him the following. Please listen to the precise words of Perashat Be'alotecha. The Pasuk writes, we are spiritually impure. Why we should be less without offering the offering of the Almighty on the proper time together with the rest of the Jewish people. Now let me give you the background of this statement. Rashi brings one opinion. I believe Rashi or the Baal HaTurim, yes, Baal HaTurim rather, says that they were actually two men that came to Moshe Rabbeinu. Baal HaTurim says they were the carriers of the coffin of Yosef HaSaddik. Second opinion says, no, they were the carriers of the bodies of Nadav and Avihu, that they perish in the inauguration of the Mishkan. Somebody needed to drag them out from the Mishkan. So there were two men in charge of that work. And they did not become purified. They remain impure. So they come to either opinion that we follow. We're talking about two people according to the Baal HaTurim. And they say to Moshe, Moshe, is this fair? We are doing a mitzvah. We're carrying the coffin of Tzaddikim. The entire Jewish people is saying the Korban Pesach. And we are stuck. We also want to be part of the Jewish people. I'm going to summarize this in plain English. Did anyone complain today that we have a special breakfast? No. Did anyone complain that we say the Yeheshem today in the prayers? Everybody's happy. Every time we say Yeheshem, it's like Mashiach came. Hamavdil. Because it's happy. Yeheshem is a happy reason. Sharkot, Hazako Baruch. We don't complain, oh, today I wanted to say Anna. Nobody said such a comment to me ever. People sometimes ask me, Rabbi, are we going to say Yeheshem on Monday or no? Can you get a mohel to come on Monday? A mohel is coming on Tuesday. But we don't need a mohel on Tuesday because Yeheshem is on Tuesday because of Lag VaOmer. You understand? So we have Yeheshem guaranteed. But if Yeheshem is on a Monday or Thursday, oh, big simcha. Big simcha. And no one complains about it. No one complains. Here, they complain. Why they complain? Because they felt left out of being able to do a mitzvah in conjunction with the Jewish people. This teaches us that when a mitzvah is done with a group of people, the mitzvah gets magnified. And if you are not part of the sibur, you are considered like an outsider. That's why the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, Al tifrosh mina sibur. Don't isolate yourself. What is the reaction of Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu could have said to them, I'm sorry, Rohi, you were impure. But Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't act like this. Moshe Rabbeinu is humble. And Moshe says, Vayomer alehem Moshe. Moshe says, Imdu, stay here. Don't go. Let's see what God tells us to do. An unbelievable level of humility displayed by Moshe Rabbeinu. What is God's answers to Moshe? God speaks to Moshe and it says, listen to the Hebrew meaning, and then we're going to explain the real meaning of this verse. A person that is impure to the soul or far away today or for the future generations and will do Pesach to the Almighty on the second month, which is today, Iyar, on the 14th day, which is today is the 14th of Iyar, you'll do the Korban Pesach with Matzah and Maror. That's the reason why we eat Matzah today. For the audience, Matzah Shemura. That's the reason why we eat Matzah today. You're not obligated to eat Matzah. It's only a symbolic tradition. Just to do something. I'm not going to have a barbecue today. It's Friday, Erev Shabbat. You think I'm going to eat barbecue? I'm going to eat tonight? Madchaf. You don't eat meat in the morning. That's a rule. Right. We eat sambusak in the morning. We don't eat meat in the morning. Okay? So we eat the matzah symbolically, which for the record, for those watching live, we follow the ruling of Hacham Obadiah Yosef, which is the majority of the Sephardic world, that from the morning after Pesach, we say the Berachah of Mezonot. We say Mezonot. So you can go ahead, say Mezonot if you did not say it on the sambusak or on the bagel. But the Torah, Rashi brings it down, that we don't have to do none of the prepping of Pesach. You don't have to clean the house. You don't have to sell the Haness. You don't have to burn the Haness. You don't have to drink 4 cups of wine, as we started to discuss this yesterday. You eat symbolic piece of matzah. Easy, practical. But I like to revise the pasuk and discuss what is the eternal lesson of Korban Pesach. Because I'm going to tell you the following. The lesson of the Korban Pesach is an eternal lesson till today. Even though we're not doing the Pesach sacrifice. So listen to the words. A person that is impure, there are two levels of impurity: physical level and spiritual level. A lady, for example, that became impure through the monthly cycle, how does she become purified and permissible to her husband? By going to the mikveh. That's one example of mikveh. Another example of mikveh for men. A man had a bodily emission or a night accident. There was a time in history that every man went to the mikveh and didn't pray or learn Torah until they went to the mikveh. That was for centuries. That today people don't do it. We get by a shower at home, etc. But in Hasidic circles, going to the mikveh every day is non-negotiable. They go to the mikveh takanat Ezra Sofer. Hazaku Baruch, Hazaku Baruch, Hazaku Baruch. Okay? So now, a person that was impure, and the Torah doesn't say to the body, the Torah says la nefesh. The neshama is impure. Now, how does the neshama becomes impure? By sinning, by committing transgressions, by going against the Torah, by going against the Hachamim, or bederech rechoka lachem, or you were very far away from whom? From God. The Torah commandment, it was as follows. A person, in order to do the first Pesach in the Bet HaMikdash, needed to live close enough to the Bet HaMikdash to be able to arrive there on time, to do the Korban Pesach, and to get back to your home before the holiday began. That means that if you lived in Tel Aviv, Rishon LeZion, Netanya, Netivot, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Givat Shmuel, Bnei Brak, even Bet Shemesh, was almost impossible for you to get there on the same day and get back home on the same day. Today you can do it if you drive. No, you only had certain amount of space. Sure, but can you imagine going on a horse from the Bet HaMikdash or from Yerushalayim till Bet Shemesh, a 40-kilometer ride? It was in the afternoon. So you were against the time. So only those who lives very close to Yerushalayim really had the opportunity of going to the Bet HaMikdash and come back home before the holiday starts. You can't take a chance to drive from Aventura to Miami Beach, let's say, or to Boca Raton when you have 1 hour or an hour and a half before Shabbat starts. It's risky. Hazaku Baruch. And this is with traffic and a highway. You think that back then they had highways? They have Highway 1? But they have mountains. Snakes. Who knows, whatever it happened. So it wasn't so simple. So, if we now understood the true meaning of the Pasuk, you know what the Mitzvah of Pesach Sheni tells me? That even though a person was spiritually defiled, impure, or far away from the Almighty, you can still get back on your track, close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As I said in the previous class, God allows U-turns. You are driving on the highway and you want to make a U-turn because you realize you made a mistake. How many times the GPS tells you, make a U-turn in 1 mile, make a U-turn in 1,800 feet. And sometimes you see a sign that says, no U-turns allowed. God allows U-turns in our life. So comes here the Zohar HaKadosh and the Ya'abes and others describing that the holiness of Pesach Sheni carries two aspects of holiness. the holiness from Pesach number 1, according to some halachic opinions, which we're not going to mention the source, Sephardic including, till today, because this is Masah Shemura from Pesach, that was baked in honor of Pesach with the Kavanah of Pesach. This is all Masah Shemura. We only serve at the Safra Synagogue, only Masah Shemura. Square or machine. Sure, only Masah Shemura. Why? Because we want to make sure that the synagogue provides the highest level of mitzvah accordingly. It costs more. We don't flink when it comes to a mitzvah. Why should I give you something less that I personally will not use? You understand me? So when we come to the synagogue, they also have they have regular, they have shemura. The ideal, according to the halacha, for the seder at least, is the handmade masa. That's great. Number 1, top of the list. Second one, machine shemura. But we don't discuss this now because I don't want to deviate from what I have. Yes, beautiful. The Zohar Kadosh says, remember I mentioned this before Pesach, that the night of Pesach is that the night of the wedding between God and the Jewish people. That's what's written in the Be'er HaChaim. Okay? Now, 30 days later, I have Pesah Sheni. So if Pesach Rishon is a marriage between God and I, Pesach Sheni, says the Zohar Kadosh, is the same thing. So what happened when a Hatan and Kala get married? How many days of celebration they have after a marriage? 7 days. You know what the Zohar Kadosh says? 7 days after Pesach Sheni, there is a godly level of relationship between God and the Jewish people. Unbelievable concept. Unbelievable concept. Allow me to quote from the Hayom Yom, a sefer attributed to the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, alav shalom, Rabbi Yosef Ishak, the father-in-law of the last Lubavitcher Rebbe, alav shalom. He came from Russia. Russia back then is not Russia of today. If you go to Russia today, you have guaranteed minyan every day. Kosher restaurants, right? Mikveh, nothing is missing. Yeshivot, kolelim, what do you want? They have it. You go to the Ukraine? No less. Even today. I was there a few times. I saw it with my own eyes. Besides Uman, Kiev. This is after the Perestroika and after the end of the Cold War, and Russia became more of a democratic system, so to speak. Whatever was forbidden for 80, 90 years due to communism, Stalin, Siberia, and all these things that really affected humanity, there was a change. And then everything was welcomed and allowed back. But when this great Tzaddik lived in Russia, it was, from the late 1800s to the mid 1900s, being a Jew, an observant Jew, it was dangerous. Doing a milah to your son needed to be done on the ground. Teaching Torah was forbidden. You remember those days? His Berit Milah was on the ground. And by the way, he's from Samarkand, right? Uzbekistan, from the Russian Sephardic community. Russia has two communities, the Sephardic and the Ashkenazic. The Sephardic, you can call it Bukhari, Kafkazi, right? Afghani, all these names. There is another name. No, there is another. Balkan is further south. Neither. No, don't mix. 1 second. Bukhari and the other one, Khaleshvili, Gruzini. Also in Georgia, all those communities are basically Sephardic communities that survive communism. Can you imagine his Berit Milah was done on the ground? Because to bring a mohel was dangerous.
Not 7 days. 10 days was in hospital. They keep him in hospital. Maybe especially do not do Brit Milah.
Wow.
And then on the 30th day, basically,
So in order to fool the government, they will keep the children in the hospital 10 days. So the 8th day passed. And they will wait 3 more weeks that everything was calm and there was nobody watching over you, correct? And then they'll smuggle a mohel, or there was an underground mohel. I heard stories, not only from him here present in front of us, but stories of my younger years, how they used to smuggle tefillin into Russia. Can you imagine? A rabbi and his wife went to Moscow in the early 1970s, and they smuggled 14 pairs of tefillin. And custom agent asked the men, why you have so many pairs of tefillin? It says, because I have an allergy in my skin, and I cannot wear 2 days the same pair. So I have 1 day per tefillin. Okay. And then opens the luggage of the wife. True story. I heard them from themselves. Opens the luggage of the wife. What does they see? Also 7 pairs of tefillin. He says, hold on a minute. Ladies don't wear tefillin. The guy from costume is telling the Jewish lady, she says, I'm reformed. I'm reformed. I put on tefillin. I heard it from them. And they said publicly in a class that they gave how they were not allowed to talk in the hotel room because the room was bugged. And they only were allowed to stay in certain hotels and in certain floors. And places that they went, they sense that they are being followed and watched. And this was sacrifice that after KGB, right? Alav Shalom. Okay, now maybe they're still alive, okay? But this is what was 40 years ago. We're not talking about 200 years ago. Talking about what? The entire 1900s perhaps? Till the 90s, more or less, 80s, 90s. Okay, that's when Gorbachev, right? And the whole gang, remember the Cold War? Okay, you were not born yet, but I remember those days. Right? The Glasnost, Perestroika, all these wars that were part of the news every day. So when this rabbi, Rabbi Yosef Alav Shalom, came out of Russia after being held in jail, accused of terrorism. What was his acts of terrorism? Spreading Torah. You know what that meant? One-way ticket to Siberia. That was the gulag, right? That was the punishment. Go to Siberia and don't come back. God forbid. Somehow, somewhere, I don't remember all the details of the story of captivity, but he was released and expulsed from Russia. And he left the country. He's no longer a welcome citizen. Of course, where did he come? To America. So when he arrived to America, I'm giving you just the background of the story to understand a bit better who he was. He's greeted at the port, and he was a great Talmid Chacham, that he was an accepted authority in all circles of life, all levels of Chachamim. And one guy says, Rabbi, you're not in Russia. Now you're in America. In America, he's being told, even the stones on the street, which back then, it wasn't paved like it's paved today. Remember, they have like these stones in the floor, on the ground. How they call them? Cobblestones. In Europe are very common. In Israel is very common. Okay? So they say to him, in America, even the stones are tarif. Yani, take it easy. What this great rabbi said, America is not different. If there are Jewish sparks, if there are neshamot available, there is what to work with. So he writes and it says, what Pesach Sheni teaches us. Forget about the matzah and the impurity and everything else that I spoke for the past 26 minutes. How do we summarize Pesach Sheni? So you know what it says? Pesach Sheni is telling me that we don't give up hope in anyone. We don't say it's too late for you to do teshuvah. There is no such a thing that we give up hope and throw in the towel. Forget about it. That person will never make teshuvah. It says, Tamid efshar letaken. There is always an opportunity and a possibility to fix and to repair our shortcomings and mistakes. And as I said in the previous class, let's bring a simple example of marriage. How many years a person may be married, and occasionally there are hiccups in the relationship. Correct? And husband and wife have disagreements, and the disagreement sometimes becomes an argument, and an argument becomes mahloket, and they don't talk to each other. But then both of them realize that this is not right, and they forgive each other, and they apologize to each other, and they reactivate the love and the goodness that they had between both of them. Do we give up hope the moment that a couple argues? God forbid. Because if that's the case, who can be married for 30, 40, 50 years? No one. So why people last in marriages? Most people, hopefully. Because we make teshuvah. And teshuvah, in this case, means, you know what? I made a mistake. And that's what the pasuk says. Ki tiyeh tameh. Even if a person was spiritually impure, or bederech rehoka, or far away from God. Lachem. What's the meaning of lachem? No circumstantial current situations, but the person distanced themselves from God willingly. The Torah says, efshar letaken. There is a possibility to fix it. Because if a person has the power to destroy, a person has the power to rebuild. Unbelievable. For me, this is an eternal lesson. And if you want to see this more openly, you have to go to the prayer of Tashlich. The prayer of Tashlich. There in the prayer of Tashlich says, Pithu li petach kehuto shel mahat. Open for me like the eye of a needle, God says, and I will open for you the gates of a big hole. It's like you draw blood. You ever took a blood test? What they do, comes the nurse, or I think it's called the phlebotomist, I believe, and with a tiny minuscule needle, somehow they find your vein, they insert it immediately, and suddenly out of nowhere, you are giving 3-4 tubes of blood. That's the meaning of this mashal. I just need a tiny opening in your neshama, God says. Give me an opening. Open for me a crevice, a minuscule opening, and then I'll do the rest. Comes Rabbi Chaim Palachi in the famous Moed Kol Hai, and it says, the day of Pesach Sheni is a day of happiness. Ki kadosh hayom, because today is a day of holiness. And it says here, on the day of Pesach Sheni, make a special seudah and invite Talmidei Hachamim to come and to participate. That's why we have the special breakfast today. I'm talking. If I talk, I can eat. Don't worry about it. I'll eat afterwards. For me, talking is eating. בסדר. Comes now Rabbi Meir Mazuz, and he brings a fascinating hidush. And it says, listen to this. Every person eats matzah on Pesah Sheni. But it says, you want to do the real deal? It says, eat matzah tonight. Tonight. Why? It says, because the offering of Pesach Sheni was done today. But when Pesach Sheni was eaten, in the night time, the night of the 15th, 30 days exactly from Pesach Rishon. So the Rabbi Meir Mazuz, Meir Mazuz from Ish Masliach, famous Sephardic giant, he says, not only eat matzah on the 14th, eat matzah only in the night of the 15th. I have my matzah ready at home for tonight. You can take, feel free to take. Be'emet. Small piece. Just make a motzi on the bread. Eat the regular Shabbat bread, challah, pita, whatever you have, and eat a small piece of matzah inside of the Seudah and say, this is in memory, or in honor rather, of Korban Pesach Sheni. This way, no beracha, because you make the motzi on the bread. No, you don't eat before. No. Kiddush, hamotzi, Seudah, and then in the middle of the Seudah, you eat the matzah. Doesn't matter when you eat it. You want to eat the matzah as dessert after Birkat Hamazon, say mezonot in the matzah, Hazaku Baruch. I'm going to have it in the side of the inside of the Seudah belly nether. Now, let's talk for 5, 7, 8 minutes in honor of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. So, Rabbi Meir Baal Haness was one of the greatest Tanaim. He's buried in Tiberias, the famous kever of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. And he was one of the greatest Tanaim who lived after the destruction of the second Bet HaMikdash. Who was the great-great-grandfather of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness? He was the Caesar by the name of Nero. Nero, one of the Caesars in the Roman history, converted to Judaism later on in his life, when converting a Roman conversion to Judaism was punishable by crucifixion. Okay, the crucifying of hanging people, that was one of the methods that the Romans will utilize to execute a Roman who wanted to become a Jew. And then you will ask yourself, why will a Roman want to become a Jew when the Romans have the upper hands against the Jewish people? Because the wise Romans understood that whatever standards and values that the Roman mythology and philosophy and empire represented was based on falsehood, idolatry, and immorality. When somehow they were exposed to Judaism, many of them, great from the Romans, converted to Judaism. Neron was one of them. In Spanish, it's called Nerón. Nero is in English, Neron is in Spanish. So one of his descendants was Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. That's what the Gemara writes in Masechet Gitin. Now, according to the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Meir Baal Haness lived a very long life, but his passing happened while he was traveling. And before his neshama left his body, he requested, take me to the city of Tiberias. The city of Tiberias is one of the 4 cities in Israel that are called Ir HaKodesh: Yerushalayim, Hebron, Tzfat, Tiberias. These are 4 cities that carry the additional title Ir HaKodesh. Why Tiberias it's called Ir HaKodesh? Not only because of the many tzaddikim buried in the city of Tiberias, but because Tiberia actually means Tibor Yah, the belly button of godliness. Tibur. That's where the water of Israel comes from the world. And that's why Kinneret comes from the Lashon Kinor, the harp of David HaMelech, the singing. And why there are many explanations on the Kinneret. Why is it called Kinneret? Connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So there is a godly element that rests upon the city of Tiberias. Goes further, and it says, one of the famous teachers of Rabbi Akiva was Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. Continues. Rabbi Meir Baal Haness is attributed to many miracles, the way the Gemara brings down in many areas. But maybe I'll tell a story about Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, a very famous story that is a bit strange, may sound even difficult to believe, but is a true story brought down by the Midrash Rabbah about Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. The tradition was back then that the Hachamim will give a speech Shabbat night. Friday night, the Rasha. In our days, when a rabbi speaks Shabbat night, people want it to be short and sweet. I know. They don't know that in certain synagogues, Shabbat night, the Rasha, is 40 to 45 minutes. Today. Some synagogues, not many. But most normal synagogues, the rabbi speaks, including ours. But I know that the attention span on a Shabbat night is much less than the attention span on Shabbat day. Because people are tired from the entire week. They want to go home, Shabbat with their families, etc. We accept that and we understand that. So, but back then, the derashot was part of the excitement of the Shabbat. And people used to come to the synagogue, listen to the speech of the Hacham. And also, ladies used to come Shabbat night to the synagogue to listen to the rabbi's speech. Here is different. No, most ladies don't come Friday night to shul. Most ladies come Shabbat day, Shabbat afternoon. But back then, ladies used to come Friday night to listen to the speech. And among these ladies that came, there was a lady who came to the speech of the rabbi. But the husband did not go to shul that night. She came to shul to listen. He stayed at home to pray in pajamas. He waited for her to come to make kiddush. But apparently, Rabbi Meir went into overtime, like it happens occasionally when the rabbi speaks. And the husband, the husband obviously wasn't happy. And the lady ran home after the speech finished. And what does she see? That she comes home and the husband is full of anger and says to her, "Where were you till now?" She says to him, "I was at the synagogue. I was listening to the rabbi's speech." Okay. The husband says to the wife, "You're not welcome back into the home until you go to the rabbi and you spit on the rabbi's face." Relax. The husband was crazy, loose cannon. Of course, wait till the rest of the story. Relax. So the wife was in pain, sitting outside of her home. Crazy husband that acted in this extreme way, definitely unacceptable. And a week goes by, she's not home. 2 weeks go by, he doesn't allow her to come home. When the friends, the neighbors saw that she's literally lingering outside of the home, they ask her, how long you going to be fighting with your husband? Go to the rabbi now. They went to the rabbi, and Rabbi Meir Baal Haness had a gift. This gift was called Ruach HaKodesh. He had vision. That's why it's called Baal Haness, the miracle maker. What happened, he says? He saw and he understood what they wanted from him. What does he say? He says the Midrash Rabbah word by word. He made himself like he has something in his eyes, and the eyes were in a lot of pain. When these ladies approached him to ask for an advice how to handle this husband, the rabbi said, before you talk, is there someone that is able to spit on my eye? I was told that the saliva has the healing power to cure eye infection. One of the friends says, you know what? This is your opportunity. You told me that your husband said, spit in the face of the rabbi. Go ahead and spit. But listen to the story. When she came close to Rabbi Meir, she says, Rabbi, I really don't know what do I need to do. I never heard that saliva can cure an infection. The rabbi says, don't worry. I heard that saliva heals. But just to be sure, spit inside of my eyes 7 times. To make sure. You know, you said doesn't have enough salt. And then you start pouring salt. 7 times. And I was cured. And I will be cured. And she did exactly what the rabbi said to her to do. And suddenly Rabbi Meir opens the eyes. Miracles of miracles. My pain is gone. I'm able to see. Comes Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, and it says to the lady quietly, your husband told you to spit on my face 1 time. Tell him that you spit on my face 7 times. The students who were watching all this strange scenario, they come to Rabbi Meir and they say, Hacham, we could have paid a visit to this husband and take care of him. You know what that means? Whatever. Or more. We take care of him on the spot. Comes Rabbi Meir and it says, you telling me to act better than God? He says, we don't understand. It says, Rabbi Ishmael says Rabbi Meir, in the name of Rabbi Ishmael, if God allows his name to be erased, in the case of the Sotah, to preserve the love and shalom between husband and wife, don't you think that I will allow myself to be embarrassed to restore the relationship between husband and wife? That's why I didn't send you to take care of him. That's why I accepted to do what I needed to do to preserve the peace between husband and wife. This was Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. Don't try this at home. Don't try this at home. None of the above you can try. Don't be a hacham. Okay, don't try the saliva, don't try nothing. Now, There are many things it says in the name of Rabbi Eliyahu Kohen Meizmir that a person who lost an object, commit yourself to light a candle in memory of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness and to give charity in his memory, and say, a person, or God forbid, a person that has a medical condition at home or anything unpleasant or unusual is going throughout their life, light a candle or give charity and say, I'm giving this charity, I'm lighting this candle in memory of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. And then you say the three words that the Talmud says, which we say in the Havdalah, Elaha de Meir Aneni, Elaha de Meir Aneni, Elaha de Meir Aneni. These are words coming from the Talmud that are connected in part to Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, especially when the person is going through a challenge. The way the Gemara tells us about a dangerous situation, that Rabbi Meir says, say these words and you'll see miracles. Also, there are some opinions that say that some people who needed refuah will come to the synagogues and will light 7 candles in memory of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, which in many Sephardic synagogues, by the way, not here yet, but perhaps we're going to do it in the future, to have a special area where people light candles, Le'ilui Nishmat de Saddikim, like we set up today, candles for Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, etc. Now, this is said in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, and it says, a person that finds themselves in danger, he give like a certain amount of coins, let's say 18, something in the number 18, for the lights and electricity of the synagogues. This is called Shemen Lamaor. In certain synagogues of the world, they auction the zechut of paying the electricity bill of the synagogue. And different people take different months. And says the Baal Shem Tov, and making this donation in honor of the neshama of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, Elaha de Meir Aneni. And it says, may it be the will of the Almighty, the same way you listen to the prayers of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, and you made miracles for him, so perform miracles for me, are all of my Jewish brethren, whoever needs miracles, in a revealed manner or in a hidden manner. The same concept is mentioned in the name of the Pelei Yoes and the name of many other Saddikim. So there are many more statements mentioned about Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. I'll tell you some of them. And it says, Amar Rabbi Huna Amar Rav Mishum Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. A statement attributed to many Saddikim. Rabuna, Rav Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, who mentioned it in the name of his teacher. Remember who did they say was the teacher of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness? Rabbi Akiva. The famous Rabbi Akiva from Lag VaOmer was the teacher of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. Rabbi Meir Baal Haness was one of the 5 students that they were able to restore the Torah after the passing of the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva. So instead of the world going into chaos, Rabbi Akiva reactivated himself to reteach the Torah. And one of these 5 mega students was Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, the one that we're talking about today. It says, Kol le'olam, forever. Yadam ragil lomar, the person should accustom themselves to say, Kol de'avid rahamana letav avid. Whatever Hashem does is for a good reason. Perhaps we don't see it today, perhaps we don't understand it, but there is a reason why something like this did happen. Comes one more Gemara in the name of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, and it says, Gedolah ha-teshuvah. How great is the power of teshuvah? We all know that is great, but it says, Shebishbil yachid she'asa teshuvah. One person who does teshuvah, mohalim lo kol ha'olam kullo. He activates forgiveness, the Gemara says in Yoma 86b, not only to him, but actually to the entire world. Midrash Rabbah says, when a person is born, says Rabbi Meir, Yadav kefusot. This is how a baby is born. Yani, I'm taking over the world. When a person leaves the world, what happens? I'm taking nothing. What I'm taking with me after 120? Nothing. Only Torah, Mitzvot, and Ma'asim Tovim. That's what the Midrash Rabbah quotes in the name of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. There are many more Gemarot attributed concerning the concept of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, and I'll finish with one. Famous Gemara in Berachot, something that we do thanks to the lesson of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness till today. The concept of reciting 100 blessings daily. Where does it come from? Comes the Gemara and it says, Hayav Adam levarech me'a berachot bechol yom. Rabbi Meir says, a person is obligated to recite 100 blessings. Where do we learn this from? Be'ata Israel, ma Hashem Elokecha shoel me'imach. What God is asking from you, says Rabbi Meir, al tikre ma, don't say what, ela me'a, 100 blessings. This takana was originally initiated in the time of David HaMelech, but was activated as a halacha in honor of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness Gemara lesson. So takana that Rabbi Meir Baal Haness did almost 1800 years ago, till today, is part of our daily life. And I'll finish with the Ta'anit Yerushalmi, and it says, Behaya ki hirbeta lehitpallel, famous pasuk from Shmuel Hanavi, when Hannah, his mother, prays to conceive a child, and Shmuel Hanavi eventually is conceived and born. Comes Rabbi Meir Baal Haness and it says, Ki hirbeta leitpallel, she increased in her prayers, she became pregnant. So pregnancy, the Gemara writes, eventually became a miracle under what reason? Because she prayed a lot for something. Comes Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, says Rabbi Shimon Mahalaftay na Rabbi Baal Haness, shekol hamarbe leitpallel ne'ena. It says the more you pray for something, eventually will activate its powers to become a reality in your life. So I think that we cover a tremendous amount of ground and information. I must apologize because I gave you the short version of today's class. But I wanted to cover both topics. That's why I gave you short and short. Okay? You have the permission to take matzah at home if you don't have. I have at home matzah already. Baruch Hashem, but if for some reason you don't have, feel free to take a piece of matzah, and if your wife asks you tonight, you have what to say. You can take the square matzah, the round matzah, doesn't matter which matzah to take, it's all symbolic. Let it be the zechut of Pesah Sheni, let it be the zechut of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness, and all of the great tzaddikim that we mentioned today, that Be'ezat Hashem very, very soon we'll have the zechut of doing the true Korban Pesach in Yerushalayim, Eir HaKodesh, Mimera V'yamenu, Amen, and Tizke Lamizvot for the generous sponsorship of today's class and the candle of Rabbi Meir Baal Haness. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen Be'amen. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashia Omer, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות את ישראל לפיכך. הרבה להם תורה מצוות